a measure of economic stability for Hawaii. But with the Reciprocity Treaty, the United States began to eye what it wanted in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. 4 years earlier, in 1872, the United States sent Major General John Schofield on a secret mission to study the natural harbors of Hawaii. When Schofield saw Pearl Harbor, he described it as the best natural harbor in the world, a port of great strategic value, perfectly designed for a modern navy. Schofield's assessment reshaped the future of the Hawaiian Islands. While the United States was focused on getting a permanent foothold in the Pacific, King Kalakaua had an agenda of his own: revive Hawaiian culture and renew the spirit of his people.
He could see that I might not be successful in creating a kingdom that will survive forever and ever, but I will do my best in preserving our culture.
King Kalakaua wrote a comprehensive history of ancient Hawaii. He revived traditional crafts and rituals such as the hula. In 1883, he erected the landmark statue of Kamehameha the Great, and later laid the cornerstone for a new royal residence, Iolani Palace. In 1887, the Treaty of Reciprocity came up for renewal. The U.S. Senate demanded one crucial change.
Then the United States raises this thing by saying, look, we're willing to extend this treaty for an indefinite period, for a much longer period, but we want Pearl Harbor.
A new clause was added to the treaty, giving the United States Navy exclusive use of Pearl Harbor. The U.S. was keenly aware that if they didn't gain control of this strategically important harbor, another nation soon would. But Kalakaua did not acquiesce to U.S. demands, angering many of the American elite living in Hawaii. The king's adversaries formed a political reform party called the Hawaiian League.
It's really a group of upstarts. Probably most of them coming back from college, from their mainland education, and they're on the make. They want to move, and they're the ones that are leading this charge.
The League members included Lorne Thurston, Sanford Dole, and William Castle, all childhood acquaintances, all descendants of missionary families.
They regrouped in Honolulu around this reform party, and they began to severely criticize the king, Kalakaua. The king was corrupt. The king was inept. The king was wasting money, which was being paid in taxes by the planters.
They don't see themselves as being anti-Hawaiian. They see themselves as defending their own principles, that the native Hawaiian period of control here had gone on too long, that it was time that a system they considered better, which was their own system, replace it.
The Hawaiian League also had a particular hatred for the king's prime minister, Walter Murray Gibson. Although Gibson was an American, he did not support the Hawaiian League. They considered him a traitor to the cause.
Walter Murray Gibson is one of the great kind of underplayed characters in Hawaiian history. He is a proponent of the political party, which is Hawaii for Hawaiians, which is a little unusual since he is himself, of course, a Caucasian from South Carolina. But as he explained it, I saw the Hawaiian people as my children, not as my underlings, and that I had a sensitivity to them that other foreigners did not.
His views on Hawaiian independence did not make him popular with his fellow Americans.
Here's a man who is negotiating with the king to bring Japan into the islands, as attempting to create this oceanic empire to offset the United States in its influence.
It was said that when Gibson died, his enemies went to the funeral just to look in his open casket and make sure he was dead.
Evidently the embalming fluid had turned him purplish and black, and so they were quoted as saying as they came out of the church, United States in its influence?
It was said that when Gibson died, his enemies went to the funeral just to look in his open casket and make sure he was dead.
Evidently, the embalming fluid had turned him purplish and black. So they're quoted as saying as they came out of the church, well, at least he's showing his true colors now. He's a black-hearted.
By 1887, the Hawaiian League was no longer simply talking about a regime change. They were planning for it. They wanted a new constitutional monarchy, giving them more political power. They wanted voting rights only for rented property, which would virtually exclude all native Hawaiians. And they backed the cession of Pearl Harbor to the United States. When they couldn't negotiate for what they wanted, they simply made it happen. On July 6, 1887, Lorne Thurston marshaled the forces of his pro-American all-white militia called the Honolulu Rifles. They marched to Iolani Palace and presented King Kalakaua with a new constitution.
Understanding that there was this military troop outside ready to actually physically take over the kingdom. After a very long afternoon, he's finally forced to sign the Constitution of 1887.
When they forced Kalakaua to sign this constitution in 1887, and it was done by force, it was done with the threat of death, Kalakaua no longer has executive power, and the cabinet essentially approves the cession of Pearl Harbor to the United States.
King Kalakaua dubbed it the Bayonet Constitution.
After the signing of the Bayonet Constitution in 1887, Kalakaua's actual political power is destroyed. He becomes a figurehead, and sadly, you begin to see society headed toward a final collapse.
3 years later, in 1890, 54-year-old King Kalakaua, feeling the strain of office and in failing health, set out for a trip to California. He was hoping the trip would rejuvenate his spirits. As his ship was returning, his sister and heir apparent, Princess Liliuokalani, was unaware that her life was about to take a historic turn.
People are decorating the streets as they always did when the king returns. There are triumphal arches, flowers, greenery everywhere. And then the ship is seen with the signs of mourning off Diamond Head.
It was a signal to the people that their king was dead. Kalakaua had died shortly after suffering a stroke in Santa Barbara, California. The Hawaiian people were unaware of his death until his ship returned to Honolulu.
Instantly, people respond very powerfully to this. The world is upset in a fundamental way. And so Liliuokalani hears the wailing from the town, and that's how she learns that her brother is dead.
Liliuokalani was summoned to the palace by the same people who had forced her brother to sign the Bayonet Constitution.
At that moment, as she describes it, you see the beginning of the end for Hawaii, because at that moment in the palace, she's told that she's more than welcome to become queen, but becoming queen means to do what she's told.
On January 29, 1891, 52-year-old Princess Liliuokalani became Hawaii's next and last queen. The new queen wrote, "I was compelled to take the oath to the Constitution, which led to my brother's death. A death she pledged to avenge." Now the fate of Hawaii was in the hands of Queen Liliuokalani, who would surprise everyone by standing up to the Americans who wanted her country.
Those Americans were powerful, wealthy, and had one goal: the complete takeover of these islands. Hawaii's last queen and her fight to defend this land, when conquest of Hawaii continues.